everyone, welcome back to Inland Empire Sports Talk. Today I am with the head baseball coach from Santiago, Ty to Trinidad. How are you doing, Ty?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself, the Santiago program, and how it all came to be 20 years ago.
Sure. This is actually my 25th year. A long time ago at 23, I got the head job at Rancho Verde. So I always got to give credit there. And I was basically a kid coaching kids, didn't have an idea what I was doing. I became the freshman assistant coach to the varsity coach within a year and was at Rancho Verde for 4 years, all the way up until 2000. And I'd heard about the Santiago job coming up, and I'd just moved to Chino, and so I went ahead and applied and was fortunate enough to get it, and still at a young age of 28, and been there 21 years, great years.
Perfect. And so you came through the collegiate system. You played for Don over at Cal State San Bernardino.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about some of the pillars that have kind of molded you as a coach, because obviously Don is a big personality in the Inland Empire.
Absolutely. So I played for Coach P. Actually, step back one, I actually played for Chuck Deagle 1 year, and then I left and came back when they were Division II with Coach P, and he was very instrumental in helping me out with my career and in coaching and playing, because of the fact that I was young. I actually had a kid at a young age, and he was really able to work with my schedule and everything I went through. So definitely hats off to him. It was just huge in terms of once I actually became a head coach, I called on him for a few things and just how to handle certain things. And another big mentor for me was Rich Graves, another guy that kind of took me under his wing and showed me the ropes. Beautiful.
So now we're going to fast forward now the 20 years. Santiago's been a powerhouse in baseball in the Inland Empire for as long as I've known you, and you've had a lot of success developing players. So what is the culture like in the locker room that you try to create at Santiago?
When I came there, the culture was, that family culture, but more so the discipline to it. I mean, we have a process we follow, and it's not for everybody. That's the one thing I know. I sometimes hear a little bit about that, but at the end of the day, we want to stick to the process, and that's doing everything we can within the parameters of what we set out. So, I mean, there's nothing magical about it. We just believe in certain things that we're going to do. Whether it's small ball, whether it's moving guys around, we really focus on detail, and that's been huge for us. And a lot of guys that go on to play come back and say, Coach, I didn't realize how much we had to pay attention to detail in order to be successful.
Absolutely. I mean, I know working at the Division I level and seeing the difference between the athletes from A to B, and I also run with Perfect Game, and you'll hear the parents in the stand, oh, he has 20 D1 commitments. I'm like, okay. Like, you have D1 aspirations, but you have backyard work ethic. Like, we need to cross this bridge at some point.
Yeah, and that's the tough part, I think, when parents come to you and they say, hey, I got a Bryce Terang. Well, there's only one Bryce Terang, or Chan Cisco, or Brandon Martin. There's a work ethic that's different that separates them from everybody else, and parents need to really take a hard look at where does my kid really stack up at, in terms of if he can play at the next level, and if so, where. So that's always a tough task of getting them to see that.
Well, and I also think people are very romantic about Division I.
Absolutely.
Versus if you're a guy, they're going to find you. Like, I was lucky enough to work the NAI World Series as a crew chief, and the kid throwing on Friday night was throwing 108, and he was a throwback from Florida because he couldn't make grades for Sullivan.
Yeah.
So it's like you look at the different levels, and people, oh, it's just NAI. Oh, it's just JC. Arguably, California junior college baseball is the best in the country.
And people forget, a long time ago, when I lived in Washington, NAI, Lewis and Clark State was one of the top dominant programs in the country. They literally, I remember watching them beat Long Beach State many, many moons ago, on national TV. So, I mean, people get caught up in the Division I's, twos. I mean, they're finding them everywhere. The Chapman had a first rounder. I mean, and Scott does an amazing job there.
Yeah, and he just won the national championship. You look at Sang and Slim over at Cal Lutheran. And they won. It's like everyone has their guy. I mean, I had Randy Benton on here a little while ago, and how many times he or Eric from San Diego, now they've moved from D2 to D1. We were talking about Cal Baptist earlier. Started as an NAIA, just like Grand Canyon, went to D2, now is in D1, won the WAC in their first year. So it can come from anywhere.
Absolutely. And I think people just get caught up in the glamour of it. And I had a kid who went to Fullerton, kicked back, went to a JC's, going to a D2, and he said, when he called me, he says, Coach, I've been through that. I've been through the whole song and dance where they took me here, but I'm going to a place that really was invested in me, and this is why I'm going to a D2 school over a D1. So it was nice to hear that and that he understood that.
Absolutely. I think the other thing that was really important that you said was that there's nothing really magical about what we do. Mm-mm. But I find that true across the board. Like, if I want to lose weight, I know that there's nothing magical, workout, sweat equity, and eat right.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing magical about it. But then there's people that look like John Belushi and there's people that look like The Rock that both know the same exact information.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm finding. One of the things I think players come to us and they can walk or they can chew gum, but they can't walk and chew gum. And part of that is, and I'm not trying to knock where they played before, but when they're younger, a lot of times coaches say, just go hit. Just go throw 90 plus. But they don't say, hey, how to hold a runner on, how to move a guy over when the situation's here, how to read defenses and things like that. So that's where the breakdown comes in sometimes when we get players and we said, okay, yeah, you're good here, but we need to add to your game. And that's where the push-pull theory sometimes comes in. And there's, like I said, there's no magical formula. We're just holding them accountable and responsible.
Absolutely. And I think this also transcends every single level because, like, I was watching the Angels game last night and they were talking about Bundy and what he did before versus this year, and it's translating that he's not just throwing, he's now pitching.
Yes.
He's learned during this time what works better for him in certain situations. So his baseball IQ has gone up, and you're talking about a big leaguer.
Yep.
And how that change of scenery can really transform a career for somebody, hearing that same information, but just that 8 degrees of separation between the way you say it versus the way I say it versus the way somebody else might say it.
Absolutely. And it's like anything. If your parents are telling you not to do something, you're like, I'm not sure. But the minute somebody maybe you look up to in another light says it, you're like, oh, really? And it's the same thing. But like you said, depending how it comes out is how players are going to follow.
Well, I remember Percival when his kids, like, he would come in to meet with me at Sports Chalet.
Sure.
And he'd be like, tell my kid the exact same thing. And I would tell him, oh, yeah, this, and this about a bat, or this. Oh, Dad, I want this one. I only played in the big leagues. I think I know a little bit about
what do I know?
But because the person who's a sales pro told you it, oh, okay, now it must be gold.
Absolutely. And that's what you see. So I think that's the tough part with us as high school coaches. I mean, we're fighting a system where, we deal with these kids in terms of how they're doing emotionally, academically, at home and all that, where I think a lot of times when they're playing on their other respective teams, they just get to see them for a couple hours every week and go. And again, I'm not trying to knock that. I'm just saying we're dealing with a lot more, a different aspect, I should say, so to speak. So, trying to get them to buy in is always a crucial part.
Absolutely. And I think also teaching the kids that the game is very different from each level. Mm-hmm. Like I work with the umpires, and I'll have guys that were professional umpires, and they drop down once they get released to college baseball.
Sure.
And they go, wait, what? Like, it's a completely different game.
Absolutely, 100%.
Adam Schwartz, who owns the building that we're currently sitting in, when he went and did a high school game and he was still in AAA, he was like, wait, what? Like, there's actually a rule for bench jockeying?
Yeah.
Like, you can't. I'm like, no, you can't just have an 18-year-old throw at a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, it's not allowed.
It's funny. I had to go and coach. I had actually a couple years ago got talked into coaching a travel ball team, and so I went from high school back down to 11s and 12s, and first couple of tournaments I was completely blown away. I had to relearn how to do it, but it was a good thing. But again, like you said, every level you go, there's something to be learned, whether you're going forward or backward. There's something there. So it was an interesting learning point for me.
So now that we're talking about learning a little bit and continuing education, what would you say is your next steps that you'd like to evolve as a coach? Because obviously you have more than 2 decades under your belt. Mm-hmm. So how are you trying to continually evolve yourself and your game?
Well, I know a long time ago, I remember Rich Graves came up to me and he said, hey, I noticed your team, was doing X, Y, and Z. And I looked at him and he says, Coach, just remember, I never stop evolving as a coach. And so for me, a couple of years ago, I was able to go coach in New England Collegiate Baseball League, which was a great, Will Smith and Tommy Edmonds played for me. And so it was a great lesson in terms of learning what the college game's like. Would I like to go to that next level? Sure, but it's not an end to all means for me. So for me, I'm always constantly asking coaches, hey, how do you run this, or how do you do this? I mean, there's never a point where you feel like you've got it all, because the minute you do it, it bites you in the behind. But in terms of evolving, whatever it is I can get my hands on, whether it's training, nutrition, which seems to be the key right now. Players are bigger, faster, stronger, quicker. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they're holding on as long as the older guys, because those bodies are breaking down quick, just as well. But for me, I need to be that much more knowledgeable. You see more indoor facilities. You see a more one-on-one training. So in order for me to be able to continue to strive to get what we need out of players, I need to continue to learn as well.
Absolutely. It was interesting because I was talking to a few of the other coaches about the advent of travel ball and how it's really changed the way that they've had to coach. Because before, like when we were coming up, it's like, okay, you throw your inning during the summer. You never would be loading up that much. Summer was more of time to play Little League or a little bit of pony.
Absolutely.
When I was coming up, there was hardly any travel ball.
No.
There was a few showcase tournaments here and there.
So-called showcase, yeah.
But other than that, like that was it.
Yep.
Or you'd go and play another sport. And now you have these kids that will play every single weekend. USSSA has 52 weekends worth of tournaments to go to if you wanted to.
Yeah, and it's out of control. I think we got in the wrong business. We should have been tournament directors for that. I mean, the guys that they do. But I get that a lot. I'll have a dad come up to me and say, Johnny's played in over 200 games. And I said, the big leagues, so it was 162 ball games. They need a rest. But again, and just like recruiting, if you're not doing it, somebody else is. And that's where you see everybody trying to keep up with one another. And that's the tough part because, again, if you're not doing it, somebody else is. And what happens is parents feel like they're behind. They feel like they're not getting enough or this kid isn't getting seen here. Or they're not going to that showcase. I mean, that's the biggest question parents ask is, hey, in the summer, who should I play for? Or what showcases should I go to? And, sometimes you got to step back and go, okay, we're in Southern California. We're in one of the hotbeds of America. If your kid's worth his SWAT, he's going to get seen. Maybe pick a showcase, maybe two, but no need to spend the farm on it and save that for education.
Oh, yeah. I talk all the time where I don't care what it is, it should be continued education.
Absolutely.
If you buy a gun, you should have continued education on how to fire said gun.
Yep.
If you're going to get behind the wheel of a car that can go 200 miles an hour, probably should go take a road course.
Yes.
And spend $5,000 less on that car and actually put that into education. I would say the exact same thing for athletics right now, where you have all these parents that want to spend $1,200, $1,400, $1,600 a month on stuff, but then they're going to all these tournaments, but they're not getting educated the same way versus having a kid just enjoy their life.
And that's the thing. I say you take that $1,200 and times it just by 10 months, and that's $12,000. That's an education at a Cal State and a small UC. And parents, again, aren't educated or getting educated. And so myself, I've recently become the assistant athletic director, so I'm constantly learning about all sports, not just one. And you asked a question about evolving. I think you and I were talking. For me, I'd love to learn more what the umpire side of things are, so I get an understanding of where they're at and helps me see things in a different light.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think not just when we're talking about the different lights for our own self, but a lot of times when we're working towards something we don't know, we're uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And that's where growth happens. I don't feel good the next day after a really good hypertrophy workout.
Yeah.
I feel like a peg man going, ow, 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 walking down the steps.
You're 100% on that.
And that's the point, is you're supposed to make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If all we're ever doing is patting somebody on the back and saying, oh, yeah, you're great, Johnny, don't worry about it. Well, then you're not doing him any favors.
And that's, it's funny, a good friend of mine, Coach Green, he's over at Washington State. He's from Riverside. Him and I did our master's degree. And so before he spoke at a conference, he shows me the clip from Rocky, the first one where Apollo's getting ready to fight and his trainer's taping him up. And he says, you're the best. Everyone loves you. The ladies love you. The guys love you. And he stops it right there and he says, those are our kids coming into us today. They're being told how amazing they are. And yet when they're not, they have a hard time adjusting to, hey, I got to work again, or I've got to learn how to work. And that's the part I think parents and kids want their kids to go from zero to hero without that process. And it's going to be a cliche forever, but everyone knows that process has to be in place to have success.
Absolutely. I know when I'm training umpires, one of the very first slides we put up is have a plan.
Yeah.
What is your 1 year, 5 year, 10 year ultimate goal? And how has your roadmap looked in order to get there?
That's a great one.
And so we can talk about that, but then the very next slide is Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. It's like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And we're kind of sitting in that right now with COVID. It's kind of that, now what? And it's been great for me to kind of sit back and watch the brain trust and truly the brotherhood and sisterhood of coaches come together and try to reimagine what athletics looks like, because people can tell me what they want. I believe athletics are essential part of our lives.
100%. I think they're part of the high school experience. Not for everybody, but a good majority of it. And that's why we have the arts and we have other things that they can get into. So, it's interesting that you say that it's an integral part.
Because, you look at the experience. I don't remember going and playing weekend 12 where I was, or I can remember the bus rides and the songs and eating
just the fun times, yeah.
And eating it, for me, it was White Castle.
Yeah.
It's like eating garbage White Castle with everyone else, or doing my homework in the gym after practice to then watch the game at 7 o'clock. Like, I remember those things.
Yep. I think, and when you talk to, I know with the times I've done it, players coming back said, and when they come and talk to my guys, they'll say, I would give anything to be back in your shoes, whether it's running a lap, whether it's sitting in the outfield, whether it's doing the pickups. He goes, that is essential for, dealing with adversity and things like that. But the experience in itself is huge for high school.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell, like, when I'm speaking with officials, if you're looking at moving up, and every high school, collegiate, professional athlete is looking to move up.
Absolutely.
We all have to have ego to play.
Yes.
And enjoy where you're at, because it will never be that way again.
You couldn't have said it any better.
When I got to D1, I thought I was on top of the world, and then my mentor said, okay, now the real work starts. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really grasp what he meant until I had San Diego State versus Arkansas on TV, and you go, oh boy, okay, here we go.
Now the lights are on.
Yeah, now we got pit tracks looking at a quarter inch all the way around.
Yeah, and they're going to let you know if you don't have it.
Oh yeah.
So it's funny you say that, because again, you mentioned with the umpires, but even as our coaching staff, when we talk to them, we say, what's your purpose? What's your why? Mm-hmm. And I think with kids, what's your why? And what are you doing there with umpires? What your one plan, your 1 year, your 5 year, and your goal. And even as coaches, what is it that you want? What's our purpose? Is it to win ball game? Well, we need to reshuffle that, because that's not going to always happen. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting you say that.
Yeah, and I feel that high school coaches have some of the greatest advantages and some of the greatest disadvantages.
Yeah, sure.
Because you don't get to recruit.
Nope.
Not the same way that
I know.
a college coach does.
Yeah.
You're kind of locked in your footprint, mm-hmm. but you also can usually get the kids to stay in a freshman JV and bring up the ones and bring them in your system and create your culture.
Yep.
I feel bad for JCs.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. It's a 1 or 2 year plan and you're out.
That revolving door, to be consistently competitive, I think, is a standard in and of itself.
Yeah. Well, Dennis Rogers did it forever here, and he was a master at doing that, and in such a short turnaround time. Mount Sac's done that the last couple of years. They've done a tremendous job. But, you look at that league where Cypress and I used to say Rancho Santiago, Santa Ana, and all Saddleback, they consistently do it. That's just a cutthroat league. So for those coaches, my hat's off to them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I go to the JC showcases, and the amount of talent you see there comparatively to because I get the advantage of seeing most of the country, and the amount of talent in this smaller geographic area is unprecedented.
Yes. I mean, some of these guys could literally go on at a Division I school and pitch in the College World Series, but for whatever reason, whether it's grades, academics, or things going on personal, they just can't. But hopefully they're getting that second chance.
And one of the things I always love is when you see somebody who his parents went there, like they go to a D3 or they go to a D2. Redlands has that.
Yes, a legacy.
Where you have that legacy and you're moving forward. Like, okay, I could have gone to Fullerton. I could have played for Vanderhook. Great. But instead, and all of a sudden you're like, why is a kid throwing 98 with a freaking amazing changeup in a D3?
Yep.
He's paying to play here.
Yep.
When he could be, but that's the legacy. Because
the legacy, and then again, what's the big picture? They want to get a great education. At the end of the day, somebody's going to pull that uniform off us. I always say this to my guys. Baseball doesn't need us. We need baseball. So remember that. I get to put on this uniform and do it for a while, but at some point somebody's going to say, hey, coach, it's time to turn that in.
Well, it's funny because Deion Sanders just put on blast everybody in the Pac-12 that says, oh, we're not going to play.
Yeah.
And he goes, y'all know that there's only one people that are necessary for a game, and that's the refs.
Yeah.
Past that, they'll find somebody else.
That's true. They'll find somebody to fill that spot, and that's anywhere we go, whether it's a job or sports. So good point.
That kind of warmed my heart because we always used to joke all the time that umpires and officials are essentially bases, that we're a necessary evil to the game.
Absolutely, yeah.
And talking to Commissioner Wygott, we were talking about the official shortage, and how that's going to look, trying to stack schedules, and he recommended that every high school goes to some of their alums. So for baseball, saying, hey, you're going to RCC. Have you thought about going to the Inland Unit and joining the Inland Unit to become a freshman baseball umpire?
Yep.
Or if you're in basketball, have you thought about going in? So that way we can try to feed the system.
It's funny you guys said that, because last year we got some of that saying, hey guys, if you know anybody that's interested, because there's a shortage, and I've had a couple obviously do so, but I think we forget, and I'm going to be honest, we forget the umpire side of it, you know, and the things that you go through. I mean, you're there for a reason. One is you love being around kids, you have a purpose to serve, but you also love the sport you're serving, and so we forget to do that. So it was nice last year when I got a chance to hear that from you guys, you know, pushing to be umpires, and there needs to be more of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we're sitting in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. What have you done to try to inspire your players, stay connected to your players? Because I've heard about 20 different versions of this story at this point.
Sure.
And all of them are inspiring in different ways. So what have you tried to do to instill and keep that family culture?
Well, we just met today actually for the first time for the semester, and one of the things I said is, look, we're in this together. It's not a great situation, but we have to be prepared, so when it does relieve us, you know, we'll be ready to go. So, you know, whether it's me demonstrating videos, whether it's them demonstrating back that they're doing certain things, I'm going to come up with, you know, different ideas with that. But part of it's going to be academic, you know, situations. I actually give them a baseball IQ test, it's not to mark them wrong or anything. It's just, hey, what are 3 ways of give me 3 boxes that you can see, you know, or what, you know, how many times can you score from third, or just anything like that. Something that massages the brain, not only on the field, but, you know, academically. So anything like that, workouts. I think I even saw on your website you had or in your Facebook, you had a workout I saw. I was like, maybe I can borrow that or something. I mean, just something to get them to check in and have something to look for, whether it's videos. Today, their paper is, what's the reason you play baseball, and what do you know about Santiago baseball? And just a paragraph, just to let me check in and see where their thoughts are, and then I'll kind of give them the information of the 20 years of how we've evolved.
Absolutely. I love that you're not only challenging them physically or mentally, but also trying to bring up their IQ just as a player.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times and I can speak for other sports, where it's like, okay, here's the game plan, or we're going to have this speaker, and concepts are great.
Sure.
But if you don't get to the how, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
You can tell them why.
Yeah.
We can teach them what.
Yeah.
But if they don't connect it to how, then you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Because, okay, this hat, okay, it's made out of X amount of stitches, it has this venting, anyone can go and make this hat.
Yep.
But how Richardson as a company delivers that product to their customers is their secret sauce for how they work.
And that's what we want for us. How is Santiago program built? How did it start? And I think in order to go here, you have to look back and go, how did it originally get going? And I think when you have an understanding of that, that's where that culture and pride comes in, going, wow, these guys forged ahead to get us here. You know, and that's what we really try to push. And a lot of players don't see that because it's not pushed, but we want it to be there. And we're going to have our down years like anything else, but that's what we're looking for. Absolutely.
I mean, we had a long conversation 2-3 weeks ago about in my mind, a lot of the disrespect in the Inland Empire, because Orange County, San Diego, LA get a lot more of the pomp and circumstance.
Sure, absolutely.
Versus you look at the players that, and I don't care if you're talking football at Centennial, if you're talking about baseball at Santiago, if you're talking about basketball at North, like there is legacies all the way down the board, and the dudes that have come out of the Inland Empire is amazing. And I would put our region up against basically anywhere in the country.
I agree 100%. I mean, I'm a pro Inland Empire guy. I like, whether it's San Bernardino, Yucaipa, whether it's Rancho Verde. Back when I was there, we had Larry Ned, you know, Damon Gayton and things like that, and they've continued to be successful. Norco, Corona, when they've had the history of good ball players, and not just baseball, but football, soccer. I mean, we'll go head to head, toe to toe. King has really come on strong. So I mean, I remember the days when Hemet was super powerhouse, you know, and Temecula and all those. So pound for pound, I'm okay with that. And I think that we do have a chip on our shoulder, and a lot of us will, you know, if you look at a lot of our schedules, we go down there. The Big Eight does. Yeah,
absolutely. I would, Steve and I, we actually, I think, cut this out a little bit, but we talked a little bit about the Riverside League and how we would love to figure out a way to bring some small town Americana to Southern California in the Inland Empire.
Sure.
Where I think the Big Eight has it a little bit, because you guys are so close to Norco, Centennial,
all those schools,
like you're really close, but then you have to drive all the way to
King. I know that makes it tough.
So it does make it tough in certain aspects.
Sure.
But versus you look in the Midwest, everybody has lights.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do.
And the advantage of lights for not just football.
Everything.
I mean, you take a football game and put it at 3:15 in the afternoon on a Friday.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get the same gate, the same draw as you do as putting under the lights at 7 o'clock at night.
Or the same feeling. I mean, you know, at 7 o'clock, parents are off of work. They're able to get everybody and go watch for a couple hours. You do that. In the old days, we used to have the Riverside Classic. And I remember watching Pauley and Temecula or Corona and Temecula or, you know, just whoever it was at night. What a great game for a couple hours. And kids see that, and guess what? They want to go to their school or they want to be that, you know. So we've kind of lost that a little bit, and it would be amazing to put, because it showcases our ball players. I mean, we can go pound for pound for. I remember seeing players from Arlington and North and you know, Pauley. I mean, just over and over.
Yep. And it's funny because I tell everyone it's really easy to umpire in the stands when there's 20 people.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
You do a Friday night under the lights when one is against one, because baseball's different.
Yeah.
Because depending on who's on the bump,
Yeah.
you can have the exact same lineup run out there Friday versus Sunday and have a completely different result depending on who's on the bump.
100%. And that changes things too. And like you said, it changes the minute you have, I don't know, I'm going to say a full house compared to no house, you know, and, you know, you're going to be up a little bit just as much as the coaching staff and the players, because it's like, hey, there's people here to watch us. Let's get after it a little bit. And that's what you see a lot in the Big 8 when we do get to play those games at night.
Oh, yeah. And you look at, I would love to see if CIF ever did this. I don't think they would.
Yeah.
But the advantage of teams with lights, if you may, so we'll take Norco as an example because they have lights.
Yep.
If now all playoff games were at night.
That'd be neat.
To see the difference, because number one, the ball flies different. You see the ball differently. And we've had this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
But the advantage certain teams would have from playing at night.
You know, when we started playing Norco, when I came in, Gary and I was one of the only teams in the Big 8 that would play them at night. And I'm telling you, there was, I mean, years back when they had the Gerhardts, and we had, I think between us there was 8 home runs hit. And the crowd, it must have been, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but close to 1,000 people at that place that could carry. But it was electrifying. You know, it was just amazing how that was, and it definitely would be different than a 3:15 game.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's actually a better venue when you have a smaller venue that's full. Like I've worked Angel Stadium.
Oh yeah.
But you can have 5,000-10,000 people at
it don't look like
Angel Stadium.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for the players right now because to play in that cathedral and hear a pin drop is just weird.
Yeah, we were supposed to play there last year, but the COVID came in, and so obviously we didn't. And like I said, it would have been a great experience, but like you said, unless it's full, meaning a Major League Baseball game, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Before he left Long Beach, like I was talking to Troy about them expanding. And I was talking to Andy Stankiewicz when GCU was redoing their stadium, and he actually asked, Troy, how many seats do you have?
Yeah.
Is it too many? Because he had a blank canvas and trying to figure out what the exact right amount is to be.
Sure.
And Troy told him, if I can have an 80% capacity every night, I'm winning.
That's good.
Because of the feel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is awesome to me because now the fans are happy. It always looks full. It feels full. You have your advantage.
Yes. And if you look at Cal Baptist, their setup, where it has that small field there, if you look at the way the stadium's set up, the seating goes straight down and it's on top of you, and the way they have it, like UCR's, but it's less. It really feels, I mean, we've played high school games there against Servite, and it was packed. I can imagine their games in for, you know, the playoffs and things like that. And I bet, well, when my son played there, it was amazing to watch. I mean, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
At least it gives you that feel.
And it's funny because I was talking to Adcock, we did Zoom, and he was talking about one of the things when he's designing his field and when the administration was asking him about it was, I want a field that gives to the players. Because in the WAC, and before that, even in the Pac West, there's so many fields that take away.
Yes. Well, we can go through them. I mean, oh my gosh, San Francisco is a tough place to be. It's in the middle of the camp. I mean, Pepperdine, it's beautiful, but there's no lights. You know, I mean, just Santa Barbara finally upgraded, but it's and I don't think they were in the WAC, right? Or
no,
they're
in
the Big West. I'm sorry. I totally
they all mixed together.
But those two conferences were the ones that, I'm sorry. Yeah, but definitely. Yeah,
but it's interesting to me how, especially when you're talking about facilities in high school baseball as well, and also just high school athletics in general, the difference in a home field advantage. When we can all say, oh, well, the ball bounces the same way. It's the same 90 feet between the bases. You know, okay.
Yeah. You've seen enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Big difference between me when I was at Rancho Verde to Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you that. So, I mean, it just comes down to the advantages of what you can and can't do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about technology in baseball.
Okay.
Baseball has been the last one to embrace it, and now all of a sudden the floodgates are opening. And it seems like everybody has a Rapsodo, pitch tracks, you name it, pocket radar. What are some of the things that you have done to take an analog game into the digital world?
Well, we used to have we were logging on the Palm Pilot. The former Bish Palmont coach, Kenny Kendrina, came up with that, and we had started using that, and it tracks everything from what's their percentage, what do they tend to do with O2, basically the breakdown of pitching, to videotaping games and as best we can. But in all honesty, we're still kind of archaic on that, just because one is the finances to get everything. I mean, I'd love to set up 2 cameras over the third and first base side and center field. Now our school has actually purchased more cameras that we are going to be able to use for games in terms of videoing them, but we're going to be able to use them for editing as well, which is what's great. So we're kind of able to jump in on that. It's a start. It's not exactly where we'd want to be, but it is what it is. I mean, even the equipment alone is upgraded, and like anything, we're at a school that we want to be able to get those things, but it's always a financial burden.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what other advantages, because like I was talking to Steve about how, you may not be able to give traction because you don't have the medical staff like what certain programs in college or professional will be able to do. You might not have the Rapsodos, but there is in Corona a lot of options for families. Is that something that you guys work hand in hand with, or?
We're starting to. Like I said, Corona happens to be big with the places that are opening up, and I can't think off the top of my head, but there's Winter Circle and all of them. So for families, they just, like I said, keep it. They're good to have. They offer some things that obviously we don't, and then there's nothing wrong with that. They just got to keep it in perspective that just because that's happening there doesn't mean it's the all of everything. You still, again, we talk about process and things like that. Use those things as a goal to get better, but don't use that as a means to an end. And so, if they're available and you're able to put yourself in a situation to take advantage of it, T2 over there as well, they have their workout place, and because of Bryce going there and his dad being there, that tends to hey, what are they doing there that makes him like that? But at the end of the day, it comes down to being are you going to put in the time to get better, and do you have the skills? Yeah.
So let's finish up here, because
I got you.
We're running a little bit behind the schedule, but that's beside the point. We always have fun. The number one question I always ask every coach to finish us out.
Yeah.
If you could say one thing to your families, to the boosters, to your kids, to your coaching staff in your community right now during this time, what would it be?
In regards to the COVID, or just in general?
Both.
Thank you. Thank you would be the number one thing, because we wouldn't be where we're at without the support of them. In spite of everything, the ups and downs, you know what? It's a great game. It's a great sport. Let's not let it be the centerpiece of our turkey dinner on Thanksgiving, but enjoy the moment. Enjoy the times you do have to get out there and do so. But with that being said, we wouldn't be where we're at without the support of everybody. So I thank them wholeheartedly. I know at times it seems difficult, but I appreciate everything they've done. I mean, I've had 21 great years there, and not that I'm going anywhere, but that really hits home for me, is making sure they understand how much I appreciate them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And anybody who would like to be on the program, please get in touch with us. Past that, God bless. Stay safe.